We'll now discuss our third case study, which involves hackers. Today, the term hacker can be used in several different ways, but a common definition is someone who breaks into computer systems and launches internet worms and viruses, or perpetrates other computer-related vandalism. Now, not everyone sees hackers in this negative perspective. Some people actually view hackers as social gadflies, which are people who raise important but irritating questions about society. Now, most people would agree that purposeless vandalism or outright theft through hacking is just wrong. Now, with that said, some of the activities categorized as hacking may constitute a public service, and several hackers have even written books and articles about the ethics of hacking. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to explore the case of whether there is an ethical case to be made in support of computer hackers. Now, to focus our discussion, we're going to concentrate on a single type of hacking, which is gaining unauthorized access to someone else's computer system to obtain and publish secret information. I mean, this could be something as simple as copying files from your company's private network and then posting them online, or something as elaborate as breaking into a government installation using some type of internet worm and just going through classified documents using an anonymization service to protect the hacker's identity. Now, these issues, which in the past have been pretty theoretical for the most part, have taken on particular urgency in recent years due to the founding of several organizations that specify the focus on information leaking as a form of hacktivism, which means hacking that is intended as political activism. So the two main groups that we're going to be looking at are WikiLeaks and Anonymous. So for this case study, we're going to look at the following ethical question. Is hacking beneficial to society? We'll start by describing WikiLeaks. Now, this was a site that was launched in December of 2006, and the site specialized in protecting government and corporate whistleblowers. So let's say, for example, you discovered a document at your work that proved that the company's leadership was engaged in some type of significant unethical behavior, and you decided to blow the whistle on this behavior. So what people used to do was to share these types of documents with investigative journalists. And usually journalists hold a code of ethics where they will not identify their sources, even if it's clear that the source has committed a crime. And even sometimes journalists will actually get in trouble and go to prison rather than reveal their sources. The problem today, though, is it's really hard to share an electronic document with a journalist without leaving any traces that law enforcement or even corporate security officers can follow. I mean, most journalists just don't have the proper computer security and hacking skills to safeguard their sources. So what WikiLeaks did, and their goal is to provide this kind of type of technical expertise, where they can provide a secure way to share these sensitive documents without revealing their sources. So usually they'll provide an electronic Dropbox and tips on how to submit documents that will prevent the leaker from being traced. So WikiLeaks has been involved in several different types of leaks that have been sent to journalists after they received the documents. So for instance, in April 2010, WikiLeaks published a video from a 2007 U.S. military action that shows the firing of 2 employees of Reuters news service. The soldiers believe that the 2 men were militants armed with a rocket-propelled grenade, but most likely it was a camera. Then in November 2010, WikiLeaks began to provide leaked U.S. diplomatic cables to various newspapers. The Daily Mail, which is a United Kingdom newspaper, and others have attributed the 2011 revolution of Tunisia as, at least in part, to allegations of the government corruption that was contained in these diplomatic cables. And then, of course, WikiLeaks has published nearly 1 million confidential or secret U.S. government documents. Now, although the employees of WikiLeaks are not hackers themselves, they do employ people with the same skill set because they provide defenses against government and corporate hackers. Now, Anonymous is a hacker group that's more difficult to describe. They are a group of hacktivists that seem primarily interested in freedom of speech, but even with that, some people would dispute that claim. Now, the reason why it's difficult to describe is because with WikiLeaks, there is a known public spokesman. The guy is named Julian Assange. and there's a board of directors associated with WikiLeaks. In fact, it's part of an officially registered Icelandic corporation. With Anonymous, on the other hand, there is no official organizing body or leader. In fact, the members, whenever they appear in public, wear masks. So any hacker or activist can claim to be part of Anonymous, but there is no official spokesman to refute these claims. And they've done quite a few things, so we're going to list some of the best-known actions. So in December of 2010, they did an attack in retribution for financial sanctions against WikiLeaks. Several companies, including PayPal and MasterCard, have blacklisted WikiLeaks, preventing donors from using those systems to donate to WikiLeaks. So Anonymous used denial of service attacks to disrupt these sites. And then another thing they did was in the summer of 2011, they did some attacks that disrupted the government websites of Tunisia, Egypt, and Libya. And these attacks were in retaliation for government censorship of the internet and were meant to help support pro-democracy revolutions in these countries. And then also they had to involve with the publication of emails stolen from Bank of America, security company H.B. Gary Federal, and several other companies. So we'll examine the ethics of this kind of hacktivism using the first two techniques we've already introduced, analogy and utilitarian analysis. So we first need our analogy. So here we're going to say breaking into a computer is like breaking into someone's house. So imagine that a burglar picks the lock on your door and then wanders around and starts picking up valuables and then escapes through the night undetected. So you'll find out that you've been robbed and, well, you're probably not going to feel too happy about it. If computer hacking is ethically linked to burglary, then we'll have the same instinctive revulsion towards being hacked. I mean, if you find out you're being hacked or you've been hacked, you're probably not going to be very happy about it either. So, there are some similarities between the two. So in both cases, the intruders were there without permission, and at least in most cases, without being aware of their presence. In most homes and with most computers, the owners do take some precautions to discourage unwanted visitors. So, these precautions that must be overcome by the intruder. And then there are laws against both forms of intrusion, although the laws against physical break-ins are clearer and easier to enforce. Now, with that said, there are also some differences between the intrusions. A burglar is likely to take something from your home, and that removal will deprive you of something. Now, a hacker may look into things and maybe even copy things from your computer, but the hacker is less likely to remove or destroy things from your system. And then a hacker would take your intellectual property and privacy that is, it's different from physical objects. So, even when someone breaks into a house, there is a threat of violence. So when a burglar is detected, things may get a little ugly, to say the least. And this physical threat is not present in a computer break-in. Although the information stolen may be personal and could lead to future physical threats. But the physical degree of separation of a virtual break-in seems to be an ethically relevant distinction. So, this analogy between a house break-in and a computer break-in does help us to clarify the differences and similarities, both of which seem to very important in this case. Let's now take a look at the utilitarian argument, the costs and benefits of hacking. So we have to first ask, what is gained and lost when a computer is hacked? Well, first, whoever owns the computer loses some control over the information in that computer. And then the hacker gains access to that information. Second, as a consequence of the break-in, there may be intentional or unintentional deletions or corruption of data on the computer. Now, these changes may be benign or maybe subsequently cause significant harm, but neither the hacker nor the person hacked can know exactly the consequences of these changes. When computer system owners or system administrators discover that the system has been hacked, there's often an increased system security to reduce the possibility of another successful intrusion. Now, some hackers will claim that they provide a public service by alerting people to security holes in their systems. As long as the hacker doesn't really do anything while inside the system, and or as long as they don't do anything or cause any problems or hurt anything, and then especially if the hacker just makes the intrusion obvious, then such hackers would argue that the consequence of hacking is improved security against malicious hackers, saying, hey, I was able to hack into your system. You probably need to beef up the security. Now, an alternative consequential argument would say that, well, increased security wouldn't be necessary if hackers weren't such a threat. So if you weren't doing these things, then we wouldn't need increased security. Now, this discussion illustrates two challenges when using a utilitarian argument in a dialectic about hacking. So the first challenge is it's sometimes hard to predict consequences with any accuracy. So here we don't know the exact damage that's being done when someone hacks into someone else's computer. And then the second challenge is there seems to be a distinction between good hackers who are trying to act in the public interest and bad hackers who want to do damage or steal things for self-interested or pathological reasons.